In this episode, we are looking at mobile device security, which matters because phones and tablets now do a great deal of the work that used to happen only on desktop and laptop systems. A user may read business email, open cloud files, join meetings, approve sign-ins, save passwords, and access internal apps from a device that travels everywhere with them. For a beginner, that makes mobile security important because the device is no longer just a personal convenience item. It is often a work endpoint, a communication tool, and a container of sensitive data all at the same time. The main lesson is simple. Mobile devices need protection not only because they connect to the internet, but also because they move constantly, leave controlled spaces, connect to many networks, and are easy to lose if nobody plans for that risk ahead of time. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is part of our companion study series. The first book is a detailed study guide that explains the exam and helps you prepare for it with confidence. The second is a Kindle-only ebook with 1,000 flashcards you can use on your mobile device or Kindle for quick review. You can find both at Cyber.Me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A good place to start is with the idea that mobility changes risk. A desktop computer usually stays in one room, on one desk, on one network, with a more predictable pattern of use. A phone or tablet does not behave that way. It travels through homes, offices, hotels, airports, stores, and vehicles. It connects through cellular service, public wireless, private wireless, and sometimes direct connections to other devices. It may be used for work while the user is distracted, walking, rushing, or multitasking in public places. That means mobile security is not just regular endpoint security on a smaller screen. It is endpoint security in a far less controlled environment. For beginners, this matters because the risk is not only that the device might get malware. The risk is also that the device may be exposed, lost, stolen, borrowed, overlooked, or used carelessly in places where normal office protections do not exist. Because mobile devices travel so much, physical loss becomes one of the biggest security concerns. A lost phone is not just a missing object that costs money to replace. It may also be a device with email access, saved sessions, personal photos, cloud storage access, customer messages, business documents, and multi-factor authentication, MFA, prompts tied to important accounts. In some cases, the phone itself may be the second factor that protects other systems, which means losing it can affect more than the device alone. A beginner should understand that mobile security starts with the idea that the device may fall into someone else's hands much more easily than a desktop computer would. That is why strong settings matter so much. The phone may be tiny, familiar, and used every day, but from a security point of view, it is often carrying a very large amount of access in a very small piece of hardware. Encryption is one of the most important protections on a mobile device because it helps protect the data stored on the device if the device is lost, stolen, or examined by someone who should not have access. In simple terms, encryption helps make the stored information unreadable without the proper unlock method or authorization. For a beginner, the easiest way to understand it is to think about what happens after physical control is lost. If someone finds or steals the device, the question becomes whether the data on it is still protected. Without encryption, the device may expose far more information than the user realizes. With encryption, the outcome is much safer because the data at rest is protected instead of sitting there in a more readable form. This matters because mobile devices often hold cached email, saved files, browser data, messages, photos, app information, and other content that can reveal both personal and business details. Encryption works best when it is paired with strong device unlock habits. A phone protected by encryption still needs a meaningful lock method because the protection depends on keeping unauthorized people from unlocking the device normally. If the user relies on a very weak code, a simple pattern, or no lock at all, then the benefits of encryption become much smaller in practice. For beginners, this is a useful lesson because it shows that one setting does not solve the whole problem by itself. Encryption protects stored data, but the everyday strength of that protection depends on whether the device is also locked in a sensible way. A technician supporting mobile security should think about the whole picture. The goal is not just to say that encryption is enabled. The goal is to make sure the device is protected both when it is in use and when it is lost. Mobility creates more chances for physical loss, So lock discipline and encryption need to work together. Patching is another major part of mobile security because phones and tablets run operating systems and applications that can contain weaknesses just like computers do. Many users think of mobile updates as cosmetic changes, new features, or annoying interruptions. The real issue is that updates also fix security problems that could be used by attackers if the device stays behind. A mobile device that seems to be working fine can still be vulnerable under the surface. For beginners, this matters because people often delay phone updates much more casually than laptop updates. They may keep tapping "Remind me later," especially if the device still feels fast enough and the user does not notice any visible trouble. The problem is that attackers do not care whether the screen looks fine. They care whether the software has weaknesses they can still use. That is why patching is a security habit, not just a maintenance task. Mobile patching also matters because phones and tablets are often used for so many important actions without the user thinking of them as full computing systems. The device may approve sign-ins, store work messages, access cloud files, and connect to payment tools or customer records while still being treated like a casual, everyday object. That casual attitude can lead users to put off updates even longer than they would on a work laptop. A beginner should understand that a delayed update on a phone can matter just as much as a delayed update on a computer if the device is carrying access to important accounts and services. Technicians should encourage a simple mindset. If the device is trusted for work, it should also be cared for like a work endpoint. Keeping the operating system and apps current reduces the number of known weaknesses sitting on the device, and that lowers the chance that ordinary use turns into a preventable mobile compromise. Content filtering is another important control because mobile devices are often used to browse quickly, search casually, and install or open content with very little thought. Content filtering is meant to reduce exposure to unsafe, inappropriate, or risky content by controlling what kinds of sites, apps, downloads, or material the device can reach or display. For a beginner, the main point is that content filtering is not only about blocking bad websites for children or preventing obvious misuse. In a work setting, it is also about reducing the chance that the device reaches harmful content, unsafe downloads, deceptive pages, or material that creates unnecessary risk for the user and the organization. Mobile devices are especially vulnerable to rush decisions because the screens are smaller, the user is often moving, and messages or links can be opened quickly without the same level of review people might use on a desktop browser. Content restrictions also help shape how the device can be used, which matters because not every app, site, or service belongs on every mobile device. In some environments, the goal may be to limit risky app installs, prevent access to certain categories of content, or reduce the chance that users open material that leads to scams, malware, or policy problems. For beginners, this is important because a phone feels personal even when it is also a work tool. That can make users resent restrictions unless they understand the reason behind them. A technician should explain content filtering in plain terms. The point is not to make the phone less useful for no reason. The point is to reduce exposure to things that commonly lead to trouble, especially when the device is being used for work, stores business data, or connects to business systems. A mobile device that reaches everything without limits may also reach more risk than the organization can safely accept. Remote control features matter because they give administrators or support teams a way to manage the device even when it is not physically in front of them. This is especially useful for mobile devices because they are rarely in one fixed location and may need support while traveling or while being used outside the office. Remote control can include actions such as pushing settings, checking compliance, locking the device, locating it, or removing access when something goes wrong. For a beginner, the key idea is that remote control exists because mobility makes hands-on support harder. A phone may be in another building, another city, or another state when a problem appears. If the organization had to touch the device physically every time it needed to enforce a security setting, it would lose too much time and control. Remote management helps close that gap by letting security settings follow the device wherever it goes. This is where mobile device management, MDM, often comes into the picture. MDM gives organizations a way to apply mobile security rules more consistently across many devices. It can help enforce settings such as encryption, screen locks, passcode requirements, patch levels, approved apps, and remote actions like lock or wipe. For beginners, the main lesson is not to memorize every feature. It is to understand why remote management matters so much on mobile devices. The devices move, so the controls need to move with them. A technician should think of MDM as a way to keep mobile protection organized instead of leaving everything to individual users and hoping they all make the right choices. In real life, some users will forget updates, some will choose weak settings, and some will lose devices. MDM helps reduce those problems by giving the organization a more consistent way to manage trust and response. Remote wipe is one of the most important parts of lost device planning because it gives the organization a way to remove data or access from a device that can no longer be trusted physically. If a phone is lost, stolen, or left behind in a place where its safety is uncertain, waiting too long can make the situation worse. The longer the device remains active and connected, the more chances there are for someone else to interact with it. For beginners, remote wipe is easy to understand if you focus on the goal. The goal is not to punish the user or destroy data for the sake of it. The goal is to protect information before the device becomes a bigger problem. If a lost device still has business email, saved accounts, or sensitive files on it, removing the access quickly may matter far more than the cost of the hardware itself. That is why lost device planning should exist before the loss happens. Lost device planning matters because panic leads to poor decisions when nobody has already thought through the response. If a user loses a phone and there is no clear plan, people may waste time arguing about whether the device is really gone, whether it might turn up later, or who should act first. Meanwhile, the device may still be unlocked, still connected, or still receiving messages and authentication prompts. A beginner should understand that a good plan makes the response faster and calmer. The user needs to know who to report the loss to, the technician needs to know what actions to take, and the organization needs to know how quickly to remove access, trigger remote controls, and protect accounts connected to that device. The reason planning matters so much on mobile devices is simple. They are lost more easily than desktops, and the first hour after loss can matter a great deal when sensitive access is still tied to the device. Another important point for beginners is that mobile security is a balance between convenience and control. Phones and tablets are popular because they make work fast and flexible. Users can answer email quickly, review files from anywhere, approve requests instantly, and stay connected outside the office. Those benefits are real, but they also mean the device becomes a highly portable access point into important systems. That is why mobile security settings sometimes feel stricter than users expect. Encryption, patching, content restrictions, and remote management are not there to make the device annoying. They are there because mobility increases exposure. The safer path is to accept that a mobile device used for work should not be treated exactly like a casual personal toy. It may still feel personal in the hand, but if it carries work access, then it also carries work risk. Good security settings are how that risk is kept under control. Technicians play an important role here because users often judge mobile settings by convenience first and risk second. If an update takes time, if a passcode feels annoying, if a blocked site seems harmless, or if remote management feels intrusive, the user may focus only on the inconvenience. The technician needs to explain the reason in simple language. The device moves everywhere, holds useful information, and can be lost much more easily than a desktop system. That one fact changes everything about how it should be protected. A beginner technician does not need a complex speech to make the point. It is enough to explain that mobile devices are small, portable, heavily used, and often connected to important accounts, so the settings are there to protect both the user and the organization when normal life becomes messy. Good support helps users see mobile security as practical protection rather than random control. As we close, the main lesson is that mobile security makes sense when you remember how different mobile devices are from fixed systems. They travel constantly, connect in many places, and are much easier to lose, steal, or use carelessly. Encryption protects stored data if physical control is lost. Patching keeps the device current against known weaknesses. Content filtering and restrictions reduce exposure to risky apps, sites, and material. Remote control and MDM help enforce security settings and support the device wherever it goes. Remote wipe and lost device planning matter because a missing phone can become a serious data and account problem very quickly. For beginners, that is the big idea to keep. Mobility creates convenience, but it also creates extra risk. The reason mobile security controls exist is to make sure that a device trusted for work can still be trusted when it leaves the safety of the desk and enters the real world.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.